morning, everyone, and welcome to Compassionate Conversations. I am Tanys Coughlan, and I am joined by Heidi Gagne from My Place Home Care. We also have two special guests today, Lita Mae Button and Gigi Van Den Hoef.
Hello,
so
everyone.
Welcome. And so we're going to be talking about Parkinson's today. So why don't we start with Gigi and just tell us a little bit about what you do with Parkinson's and what your experiences have been.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. And my name is Gigi Van Den Hoef. I have been involved in Parkinson's disease since 2015. And personally, I had a mother who had a slow neurodegenerative disease. And when I was exposed to a clinical research study for Parkinson's disease, I was the president here in Ottawa. I thought, oh boy, what is being taught now in nursing school with regards to Parkinson's? Because the medication management for Parkinson's is significant. I would say, it's very comparable to somebody who has type 1 diabetes. You need the medication to move. And so asking my board at the time and nursing students, they said, well, really not much. And here in the Ottawa area, there's quite a few people that live with Parkinson's disease. So I did my master's focusing on Parkinson's disease throughout. I was part of the Canadian guidelines for Parkinson's disease, the second ones, and you can find that on the Parkinson's Canada website, certainly under the health resources. And so I do care manage. I care manage with other nurses, and we've helped other nurses really to learn more about Parkinson's disease, and it really is a lot to do with symptom management. So that's what I do at the moment in a nutshell.
Okay. And Lita?
Hi. So my background is with the Bachelor of Sciences in Nursing, and then amateur and professional boxing for over 15 plus years, and a number of different fitness certifications. And then in 2017, I was voted Fab Female Health and Wellness Entrepreneur of the Year in Greater Toronto Area, because I specialize in helping people with Parkinson's move beyond perceived limitations so that they can have a quality of life right now until a cure is found. And I do that through work study boxing, Toronto East, out both online and hybrid. So that means both in Toronto on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and online Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, with access to online as well 5 days, because the tagline for the Rock Steady Boxing is "In this corner, hope," and it's the perceived exertion beyond perceived limitation exertion that boxing helps people with their quality of life from head to toe, because it is a movement disorder. So people often think boxing is a contact sport, like Muhammad Ali, right? We all think Muhammad Ali when we think Parkinson's. But the reality is that it's a movement disorder, and it's often a number of different things that are associated with the diagnosis of the disease, such as hereditary, lifestyle, gut health, and all of that. But until a cure is found, I'm one of those coaches that helps people look at their symptoms from movement as medicine, as opposed to just the medication.
Awesome.
Yes, movement is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Gigi, maybe you can explain, what is Parkinson's disease?
I can. So what I can do is have Tanys pull up the first picture.
I have it there.
And let me explain a little bit about Parkinson's disease, because it affects every single system of the body. So this is, it's kind of small, but let me try to walk you through this. I've taken these graphs off of Google Images. And so what happens with Parkinson's disease is that it's typically diagnosed later on in the disease process. So we have things called prodromal symptoms. Constipation is a prodromal symptom. REM sleep disorder or disorder is another, or anosmia, which is lack of smell. So we have a lot of symptoms that one would have before we get to the 0 time point on this graph. And so typically what happens, and everyone is different. When you see one person with Parkinson's disease, you see one person. But typically the diagnosis will be made by a movement disorder neurologist or a neurologist. When there's bradykinesia, or akinesia, which is slow movement, rigidity, tremor, and postural instability. And as the disease progresses, what happens is that we need dopamine. And dopamine is found in the midbrain in the middle of our brain, in the substantia nigra. And as the more symptoms appear, more the neurons have died off to produce the dopamine. So if you go down to the second iceberg picture, yeah. Oof. So there's really all the signs and symptoms of motor and non-motor symptoms. Not all of them. There's some that are even missing on this. But there's a lot of symptoms underneath before the rigidity, tremor, the slow movement or bradykinesia, akinesia, and postural instability occurs. And so all these symptoms are, a prodromal, and they get worse as time goes on. And we help. Exercise is key for Parkinson's disease, as with the medication management. You need to replace the dopamine that's died off in the neurons.
So it's really easy to see from this diagram, this picture, how difficult it would be to diagnose Parkinson's, because depression, pain, anxiety, gastric reflexes, hallucination, these are all tied into so many different things. Mm-hmm. That without the ones you can actually see, or the more commonplace ones, no wonder it's difficult, and some people don't get diagnosed early.
You're absolutely right. People go in and they are, they may go see their GP and get a referral to one place or to another. And, to manage Parkinson's disease, especially as it's advancing, that's really critical to have this holistic and care management that really is lacking in our public healthcare system. And so here in the Ottawa area, we have nurses that care manage. And so if somebody is further along and needs help with a personal support worker, we either can bring in the public healthcare system, which can be good and not good, or we bring in some private care. And we help with the PSWs. There's making sure that medication is timed and taken on time. But if the disease starts to advance and more medication is needed, then as the nurse who's knowledgeable in Parkinson's disease can go in and say, ask some questions, observe, and then make that referral or the connection with the neurologist to say, hey, we think that this person needs to increase on their medication.
So there is no cure at this point in time for Parkinson's, but is that on the horizon? Like, is there even a glimmer of that coming that you know of?
So even with the biomarkers, Michael J. Fox Foundation, everybody is familiar with Michael J. Fox and his Parkinson's disease. There is no cure. It's multifactorial, and really the scientists, the neurologists that are trying to study what causes it. We know that there is in the scientific literature, there are some triggers. So genetically speaking, you could have GBA or LRRK2 or PINK. There are some genes that cause Parkinson's disease. But you may have the gene, you may have a variant, but maybe you don't have it. It really depends. And then you have the environmental factors, the pesticide exposure, the lead pipes. If you're living on a well and have your water pumped up from a well. So knowing what you're being exposed to, or ingesting is one of, our triggers for this. So being aware that we can do things to try to prevent, that's where nursing comes in. We've been trained as healthcare professionals to try to help and prevent as much as possible. Exercise is really key. Sleep is really key. You can appreciate those people who have rigidity. They also have pain. And this can also be misdiagnosed as time goes on. So some of my clients have been told that they had old age. Well, no, they had Parkinson's disease. And once they were on the medication, things started to improve. So managing and observing in the different stages of Parkinson's is very helpful. Later on, if there's too much, people may have hallucinations or delusions. And so that's even fine tuning how much medication that they do need to have. And there's so many different medications that are on the market.
Right.
Lita Mae, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah.
So I always say to anybody who's coming and asking information about the program, is the best thing that you can do is high intense exercise. In the studies, a number of studies have showed this. The boxing specifically helps the movements from head to toe in terms of rigidity, balance, gait, posture, stoop, the social community and camaraderie that comes with the program as well, because often depression is one of the first signs. I've found in my experience for the last 9 years, as well as the lack of smell. Most of the clients that I've had is always, what did you first notice? Oh, no smell. So,
which would be hard nowadays because so many people that had COVID, like my son-in-law still has no sense of smell, or very, very mild when he got COVID. So that's also a dangerous kind of, if that's a big indicator, that's a dangerous time right now because of that.
So you could misdiagnose, right?
Yeah.
With that. Yeah.
There has been some scientists that have looked into in COVID, whether or not that is one of the contributing factors to get Parkinson's disease. The answer originally was no. We'd have to, follow the scientists and the publications that are out there to see, will this be one of the causes of Parkinson's?
Oh, sorry. That's not what I was just talking about the sense of smell, losing your sense of smell because you had COVID, and then also not gaining it back. And I mean, there's just so many other, that loss of smell would be an indicator, but because so many people lost theirs from that and have trouble getting it back, that's kind of one of those things that you would think, okay, well, not everyone loses their sense of smell. It would be something, if I lost my sense of smell, I'd be like, okay, what's wrong? I don't have a cold. I'm not sick. But if you had COVID and lost your sense of smell, it's slow to come back. So, I mean, it might delay any kind of diagnosis if that's one of the first kind of things that people notice.
I think it's a combination, right?
Yeah.
It would be, you'd be looking for the combination of symptoms.
Rigidity and.
Well, that's later on. So really
later?
Yeah, the anxiety, depression, constipation, those are prodromal. So, with anxiety and depression, exercise is really good. Exercise is good to keep you moving and to help your bowels move. But with the peristalsis, the slowness of the GI system causing, everything is slowing down. And so the anxiety, depression, sleep is our big pieces. So exercise, we talk about exercise. It's so important to do. Even with dementia, right? I mean, people with Parkinson's disease can have frontotemporal dementia or Lewy body dementia. So people who have dementia but don't have Parkinson's may have the loss of smell. So it's really important to stay healthy. It's really important to exercise and to sleep. And as a nurse, to care manage and to really help navigate the system. The support that we provide to clients, because I'm not in the public healthcare system, I'm private, and people have insurance or they are willing to pay out of pocket. But even if I'm supporting the spouses with substitute decision making, or that, at what point do they trigger it, or whoever is helping and supporting that person in the community. Because our system is so fragmented and lack of resources, it's really a challenge. Some of the things that I have seen with some of my clients, it's a long trajectory to get that diagnosis. And so more needs to be done, and every province is different in the way that we administer healthcare delivery. Let's just even say for genetic testing in Ontario compared to other provinces, it's behind. And that there are gatekeepers to our public healthcare system. So, if you suspect somebody is getting along this trajectory, it's really good to try to intervene early and to be their coach along the way. So if you're out there as a PSW, personal support worker, or a healthcare aide, to be tapped into the rest of the healthcare system, or a nurse that's knowledgeable in Parkinson's disease, if they're finding something else out, once you get a diagnosis, there's a lot of education they'll also provide. And so you can appreciate somebody that doesn't have the education, knowledge, skills, and background that a nurse knowledgeable in Parkinson's has in the community. Then there is the camaraderie to help with that and support the PSW, because there are some things that we can prevent. If the rigidity in the akinesia, the bradykinesia increases, then there's the risk of falls, right? And so to put placement into a retirement home, understand that in the curriculum for Parkinson's disease, whether or not it's nursing, med school, physiotherapists, the understanding of the medication management is really key, as with exercise.
And how do you find, Gigi mentioned that here in Ontario we're a bit behind. How do you find your system, Lita, in terms of that?
Oh, in Newfoundland, the healthcare system is not a good one in Newfoundland. And I know that there's a lot of backup in terms of care for people with Parkinson's. And in general, because the population here is 30% of the population here is older. So people go away and then they come back to retire. So it's very, very, there's a lot of disconnect between services, preventative services, medication, and actually getting into the resources that help connect everybody and support them. But Parkinson's Newfoundland tries to fill that gap a lot with education and resources, because we're a very rural province, right? Where there's 500,000, just over 500,000 spread across a large rock. So there's a lot of different ways of filling in the gaps, like online communication, education, seminars, and that people go around to, like different neurologists, doctors, advocates will go around and do that to fill in those gaps as best as possible. But that's a common concern I've heard through rural Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other aspect that's changing currently is the ability to provide virtual care. So I reside in Ontario. However, I can provide virtual care in Newfoundland. We've checked, as a nurse, we've checked our colleges, and we are permitted to do so. Just like sitting here in Ontario, I can provide virtual care also in Manitoba. And I have done so. And so working with teams or families in Newfoundland, providing the education, we can do that virtually as well. And then teaming them and asking the right questions is really, really, really beneficial.
I like that you said asking the right questions, because as a coach, like asking specific questions to get to the answers of things is really great. Would you be open to sharing like what kind of questions that help impact and make those changes for your patients and client care?
For me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is one thing I didn't add onto the pictures. I mean, we really talked about the symptoms, but if you Google on Google Images about the medication management, you can see the graphs. So one person will get diagnosed, and then, the graph of levodopa carbidopa will be something like 4 hours. But as the disease progresses, that narrowing threshold becomes narrower. Maybe the medication is only effective for 2 hours. And so more medication is needed. Or there's a medication that's needed for the night to get them through the night. But then they have overactive bladder, or they need to get up to void. There's lots of education that takes place of what you're eating, when you're drinking, when to stop drinking, how to, because it affects every single system, we really do need to coach and meet the families where they are. That's what I do. Meet them where they are. Ask them if they're familiar with the language. Off and on. That is, when you take your medication, you become on. And then when the medication starts to wear off, you become off. And so there is this cycle that goes on. And as the person ages, the dyskinesias or the tremors may increase. So dyskinesias or the tremor with the hand, right? And so really it's meeting those people, the people that are living with Parkinson's, what they need. And so I will ask them just the basic questions, and then, work with them from there.
Amazing. Yeah. I love that, meeting them where they're at, because as coaches, like, that's our job, is to meet where the person is and help fill in the gaps and move them forwards to the resources and everything they need, or the goals that they've set for themselves.
And as nurses, we want to try to prevent as many adverse events as possible. So is that falling? Is that, what is it that's going on? How can we help and assist with a person that's advancing with Parkinson's? Even the advanced care planning, talking about, do they have a power of attorney in place? And what does that look like? Who are their substitute decision makers? Have you thought about what your life will look like in 5-7 years or so? And then that process will start to, we'll have those conversations. I'll have those conversations with my clients and their family members.
So how long, how long does it take for Parkinson's to progress through stages? Is it just, who knows? Is it, I guess the more preventative things you can do, the slower it would occur. But does it feel like, how do I say this? When one is diagnosed with Parkinson's, does it feel like it's the end for them? Or
you don't die from Parkinson's, you die with Parkinson's.
Okay.
And so all those signs and symptoms that they're experiencing until they get that diagnosis, then it's really having the conversation and the education piece.
Right.
That's because in my area, it's lacking. The educational piece, that time to sit down with the family is lacking. And, going into the home and seeing their environment, meeting the family. The family, what I provide is family-centered care, giving. And, the person at the core is the person living with Parkinson's disease. So, it's really all the support and all the education that's required is important. And that is not the way our system, our public healthcare system is organized.
So what can a family member or a primary caregiver for somebody with Parkinson's, what can they do to help? Just be educated, be aware of the symptoms and that the person with Parkinson's has? Is there, or advocating, I would imagine, would be big as well. But what else is there as a support for a caregiver?
Yeah. So it really depends on, again, it depends on every situation, because every situation is unique that I have walked through there with the client and their family. And so it really is specific on the resources, on the needs, the stage of Parkinson's. Genetically speaking, the genes that are impacted, even the mitochondria, which are our energy source cells in the body, if that's affected, then there's there's ways that we can try to target and try to get precision medicine, but we're not there yet. We need to work that way. We're not there yet here in the Ottawa area. Maybe elsewhere in the world, they might have a little bit more with precision medicine, but we're behind. Which is the right drug for the right patient at the right time, right? Mm-hmm. We have generalities, but more money is being pumped into it. In the United States, they are trying to do more, and we know our scientists work very closely together. But it's the care and it's the provision that we provide. Some of the caregivers are burnt out, others split. The family is a split dynamic because there's so many things that have happened prior to not having that understanding of what's going on. And so, whatever we can do to help and support. People do have insurance. So for nursing care, private nursing insurance. And that sometimes it's not been worked or talked about. And maybe, Lita Mae, you have clients that have insurance, that can have a nurse that's involved in their care. As with, the association, people have it, especially here in the Ottawa area. So tapping into that is helpful to find resources that are outside the public healthcare system.
Right. Yeah. So, Gigi, do we still have time, or are you?
One more question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Late, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a specific question right now. I was just wondering if there's anything you wanted to share before you have to leave us. Any kind of conclusion, anything like that would help people.
Like where they can reach you and what kind of organizations you're involved in.
I'm the executive director for the Canadian Association of Self-Employed Regulated Nurses. Saying that's a mouthful. I consult with Nurse on Board. In Ottawa and the surrounding area, we have collaborated and mentored other nurses about Parkinson's disease, including a physiotherapist. So outside the public healthcare system, we really are we work closely together, and we can have the PSWs as well. They need to be folded in because often if they're advanced Parkinson's, the personal support workers are key. They're more there with the family. So Nurse on Board is who I consult with, and I'm happy. Reach out, and if you want to reach out to me directly, I can fold you into My Place Home Care.
Yeah.
Nurse on Board, right? I had a conversation with Kumar before. So we're here, and we know there is a need.
Excellent.
And your website is below this video, so if people are looking for that, they can find you there as well.
Wonderful. Okay.
Very
nice meeting you, ladies.
Yes.
Lita Mae, will meet you.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, Gigi.
Care. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, now we get to be all nitty gritty. I'm so curious as to what is it about boxing? So I do kickboxing.
Okay, awesome.
But very low key. I do it as a cardio kind of thing. But I know that there have been some days where I come back from a class and it's usually the next day that I can't even move my arms because I pushed myself. So and when you're thinking of boxing, everyone thinks of, jab, cross, hook, uppercut, that sort of thing. What kind of boxing is done for patients with Parkinson's?
Yes. So that is a great question, Heidi. And first off, I always say kudos to you. Well done looking after your own health, because health is your wealth, right? Movement is medicine. Yeah. It's very specific program. So I took a certification back in 2016. And then because of my background with nursing, and then my extensive background with competitive and recreational boxing, I just took the template of the program, and I work on those formats with each of class that I take. So the main component is boxing, and everybody loves the boxing, right? So language as well is very empowering. So okay. I'll get to the key components, but I'm going to go to the language, because when we look at Parkinson's and we look at home care and when we look at support groups and we look at the gloom and doom, and I don't mean it to be like negative, but the hope is not really there, right? Like, first off, you're diagnosed. Well, there's no cure. Okay. Well, that's science. Second off, you're put into a support group where it's like, and I don't mean this negatively at all. It's just because as a coach, I know how important action is for prevention and decreasing the prevention. And I've seen it in the last 9 years, and I'll share a couple stories here. But if all we're doing is talking about, we need to do this, we need to do that, that is not where the change and the help of degressing the disease and quality of life takes place. So that's why I'm very passionate about the boxing to help fight back in the language, right? So we call people with Parkinson's, my clients, I call them boxers. And their opponent is not like in the ring hitting somebody. Their opponent day to day when they wake up is that progression of the disease, is Parkinson's. Right. And so it's that. It's the language of like winning and little wins, big wins, whatever your wins may be. It's important to focus on that language. And then your support care in your home, or if they're coming to you literally in the gym, is called your cornerman or cornerwoman. I say cornerwoman too, because most support people, caregivers often are women, right? Women, so, yeah. I think that language is very, very important because it allows, like, words have power. They do. So when that, and depression, it's real. Like, I've suffered with that on and off in my life. It feels like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of, well, I know I'm going to feel better if I move, but I feel really crappy, right? Yeah. So that language that empowers you helps take back that power so that you can help fight back against the disease. So that, in terms of the boxing itself, program is very specific to Parkinson's because of rigidity. That's a really big thing from head to toe. It's full movement. Like Gigi was saying, there's many different systems. So we work on a lot of stretching first and foremost. So it's not your typical exercise program, which we do a little bit of warm up, kind of, and then we move into it. No, our warm up, everything is very specific for the symptoms of Parkinson's. That stiffness, everything is opposite, because with the movement disorder, everything is going smaller and smaller with everything I do with the boxing. And I swear my drama comes from coaching this program for the last 9 years. I'm bringing that energy to help transfer it over across to them so that they get that sense of, yes, I can empower myself. Yes, I'm a fighter. I have my hands up. I can roll with the punches that Parkinson's throws at me. And with the boxing, a great analogy. It really is. Yeah. And then with the boxing itself, like that shuffling of gait, and that's a huge risk for falls. Yes. It's always, we're doing the opposite. So I'm teaching them how to balance just by empowering themselves through that stance, that movement with the boxing stance. And then I do a lot of different cognitive type drills, balance drills, camaraderie, social camaraderie drills. So it's a very impactful multi-level program, as opposed to, and I'm not saying like the kickboxing class isn't effective or anything like that. It's great. You've got your social camaraderie and you're there. Yeah. But you're there for your exercise and you're there for, releasing. Yeah. With the Parkinson's program that I run, the Rocksteady Undisputed Toronto East, is very multi-level. So we're looking at all the different things, the social camaraderie, our vocals, we're looking at our cognition, we're looking at the balance, we're looking at the support aspects of how do we, have those conversations in terms of advocating for yourself. And it's been effective. It's been super effective. I'll give you two different examples. So a number of clients that I've started working with since 2016 have stuck with me and gone through and went through COVID, and we transitioned online, and they were like champs at it, And then there was some that really resisted the technology, and it broke my heart because a couple of them passed away, and then a couple of them completely lost their license. Whereas everybody else who stuck with the exercise and the consistency of the exercise 3 times a week, 4 times a week, some of them, maintain a quality of life. They're still driving. They still have their independence, you know? So that's why I'm really passionate about that action, that implementation. Yay, take those actions. That's great. That's where the change, and that's where you're really going to help yourself.
So how do you do it online then?
So how you're there in your space, how I'm here in my space, and I coach you through that. Right?
Do they have somebody with them that like
some of my clients do, but often after 3 months, their balance and everything is really great. For instance, we can say his name because I always get people's permission before I share. He just shared with me, his neurologist was like, I'm so impressed. You're doing so well. He's been taking the Rock Steady boxing program out with me for almost a year now. And I've had other clients who they have with their nutrition and diet as well, because gut health, they're seeing more and more is connected to those lack of dopamine levels, have reversed their disease. So it's powerful. It's like the power of belief, the power of movement, the power of movement, like eating as nutrition, eating as medicine is really, really effective. And it's not commonplace in our systems yet. But I think the more the research comes out and the more everybody kind of shifts that perspective and the mindset, they'll see that that's where it's at, because the system, like Gigi is saying, it's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why we're seeing more and more of this kind of thing, like, you know, independent nurses and independent health coaches and that sort of thing coming forward, because there's just holes
and programs like this.
Yeah. And programs. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's holes in the system.
And we got to fill them. I mean, that's why My Place Home Care is around. There is holes in the system.
Yeah.
And people want to be at home and want to be able to do boxing if they have Parkinson's, but do it from the privacy of their own home. And I think it's really fantastic. So, like, okay, what kind of moves do you do? I'm curious. Like, do they? Okay,
I'm on screen. Okay, I'll go into full coaching mode.
No, I'm really curious, because if you have any kind of rigidity, I mean, it would be difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see. Show us some of the things.
So, because there's different, like, what's available to everybody, right? So, for instance, I have a couple new clients. I'm not going to mention their names because they're new and I haven't gotten their permission yet. But they're just kind of starting out this week. So they're very like this, right? That they're standing like this. The movements are like this. It's really slow. So as a coach, I'm there encouraging, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're going to do it big, right? So this is one of the basic ones. And I've had some of my clients say, this saved me when I was in a social environment. You get that anxiety with Parkinson's. You get that freezing. So I do a heel toe. So if you're really, for instance, if you were on the other side there, Heidi, and you're standing and you were stiff, I'd be like, you need to move your arms. Let's point your toes towards your nose. Let's go heel toe, heel toe. I also do a lot of yelling because of the vocals, swallowing. That's a huge issue. Aspirating with Parkinson's is huge. So vocals, it's all of it. So that's one of the things that I do. Just one. There's so many. If it's available for some of my clients to get down on the floor, I'll stretch with them down on the floor. I'll show modifications. If it's not available, again, it's group classes. So I always do everything that's geared towards the group. So some days the group, everybody's more able to get down on the floor. We'll stretch down the floor. Some days, like my Fridays, so it's a little bit more of a mixed class. Stretching on the chair because everybody can sit, right? We'll do stretching like this, or balance is an issue. Some people may be able to squat like this.
Right.
Clients that I don't, we just work on that sit to stand. That's a basic. We're going to sit and then we're going to stand. We're going to sit and we're going to stand.
But even that is beneficial. Like it seems so simple and basic to those of us that kind of take advantage of the fact that it's easy for us to do. But that is a great exercise for somebody that struggles with it.
Exactly. Your basic activities of daily living, right? Like walking up and down stairs, right?
Yeah.
Brushing your teeth. With Parkinson's, there's stiffness and rigidity. Doing up your buttons on your shirt. That's really hard. So I do a lot of stretching the fingers. I do a lot of let's yell. you know, because Parkinson's is doing this to you, right? This is what you're going to get eventually. And I've seen it in nursing long-term when I was in long-term care. You're in the wheelchair, right? And I was like, there's got to be something more. And then when this program came along, I was like, oh, that's movement is medicine. I've always believed it. But I watched it unfold in front of my eyes. I was like, there, that's it. And it's boxing.
Awesome.
And boxing is so empowering, I find. Ever since I started kickboxing, I've been doing it for quite a few years. Like, we had to break for COVID, but we figured it out when we could do outdoor stuff at least. But I stopped doing it for a year, and I'm like, okay, this is dope. I need to do it. And I've been doing it since January, and seriously, losing it for 1 year, like, I used to be, I could never do the splits, but I mean, like, I could stretch way better than this. And it's just, I'm like, oh, okay, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun. And, you know, it helps with depression. It helps with anxiety, being able to, you know, just when you start doing like a simple move and you're just like, oh, you're angering me, whatever it is, I'm going to pretend to punch you. Like, it's also enjoyable.
Yeah. Stress relief, right?
It is.
Exactly. Yes. And for a lot of people that I've coached, they've tried other exercises and they just found it's like, I had one lady say to me a couple of months ago, the treadmill, she's like, the treadmill should be thrown out. It's like, boxing is so much fun. So.
It is more fun. And the camaraderie. And
exactly.
Like the fact that you do the virtual classes, but everyone can see each other, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Do you? Yeah. You're still.
And I learned a lot with technology. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just learned a lot with technology to make it more inclusive in terms of bringing it together, because virtually, you know, we feel very disconnected. Right? So I'm always working on different ways to do that. For example, today we did a trivia. We did like team A, team B, whoever, you know, different points, and then they had to exercise at the same time. Right. So that's just one example.
So how long are your classes usually? Like an hour?
Anywhere from an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the day. Yeah.
Awesome. And how many classes do you do a week then?
I do 3 on a regular basis. And then because as well, with the main, like what I've really loved about the online program, like it was very stressful when it first happened, but my first thought when COVID hit and we all like shut down, and it wasn't within like 3 or 4 days, I was like, uh-oh. I'm like, some of my Parkinson's clients, they're widows, right? So, or widowed, I should say. I was like, they're alone. Like, this is detrimental for your mental health, like let alone living with Parkinson's. I was like, I switched everything right away. And I'm so happy that I did, because it decreased those barriers, right? When you think about getting to the gym, you know, when you're already living with like movement disorder, getting in your car or getting on transit or having that, like your support person, maybe they're still working part-time, maybe they're looking after grandkids as well. You know, you've all these barriers and they're next to nil, except for learning how to turn on a camera and adjust your camera and get on Zoom. As long as you have this space where it's a safe space where you're not going to trip on anything, you know, it's not going to happen around. You're golden. It's just that it's that movement. It's not about all that fancy stuff. It's about that camaraderie. It's about the skill set, and it's about the mindset and attitude with your movement and analogy of the boxing to take back your power and you know, bring back hope.
Are you guys opening? Are you guys going to start moving Rocksteady boxing outside of Toronto and Newfoundland, or are you?
Rocksteady Boxing is originally founded in 2006, if I remember, out of the States.
Oh, okay.
And the impact of the program, I think they have over 1,000 and something affiliations now worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Because it's such an impactful program. You know, it does, like, so again, I'll come back to the stiffness from head to toe in the movement. Because you're working on the yelling, you're working on the social camaraderie, you're working on your vocals, you're working on the stiffness, you're working on your balance, you're working on like just keeping your hands up alone helps that posture. You're working on like health education. all of it. And it's not, there's other programs that kind of do something similar, like LSBT big, I always get it confused. So they're doing big and they're doing balance, but it's not bringing all the components together. And that's what I love about the program.
So anyone in Ottawa is interested, there is a company called Boxing for Health that does have a Parkinson's program and a senior program as well. So you can find them online. I just did a little research on it when we were talking about what Lita Mae does. So there is one in Ottawa. I don't know much beyond that, but if you are interested in a program similar to Rocksteady, then you could check them out and see, because they do have senior focused ones as well, not just strictly Parkinson's, which, I mean, boxing would be great for anybody who is starting to feel stiff and modified for senior. I know my kickboxing instructor modifies it, like if you have a knee injury, she'll tell you what you can do instead. Well, you're still getting the benefits, but accommodating for any kind of injury or anything that you have. So I think it's fantastic. And I never thought I'd like boxing. I'm not interested in watching MMA and everything like that, but like a good old kickboxing and everything is beneficial for anybody of any age.
Yeah. And it gives you a whole new perspective on looking at it, as opposed to, because in mainstream media, we think that like the boxing, the kickboxing, martial arts, it's very like aggressive and violent, right? Because we think UFC, yes. And that's just one component of it.
Right.
And those of us that are in the boxing world and in the MMA and like striking world, we always say like boxing saves lives. And it's not just because you have to get into that ring and actually punch somebody in the head. It's no, because the analogies and the empowering language of it all can help Parkinson's to women with trauma, to little kids who need to learn how to regulate themselves without, like, way there's so many levels to it.
Right.
And the classes that you do online, I guess you have people from all over the country too, I would think, in your classes, right?
From Alberta to Newfoundland to Ontario to Nova Scotia. I'm working on getting out there more and spreading the word, because a lot of people really haven't heard it. So my coach is like my own coach, like business coach, is like, you need to like movement for older people. Get out there and talk to everyone about it. And all the stats are showing are that gap of aging in our country is like baby boomers, right? And it's more definitely healthcare system. So the more it doesn't, you can, as a senior, it helps with your balance. You don't just have to have Parkinson's.
Yeah. Exactly. Do you do senior focused classes at this point, or do you personally specialize in the Parkinson's?
I just personally specialize in Parkinson's, and then because of my nursing background, I tend to attract everybody who's 50 and above, and women as well. So that's just my demographic. But I'm working on, because I'm doing motivational speaking, so now I'm going to be working on a signature speech that has to do with boxing for seniors and Parkinson's as well, and spreading the word out there, especially in Newfoundland, because we have 30% of our population is retirees. It's huge. We're the smallest province, I think, in terms of people, and the highest for older people. So I'm like, I need to get out there and spread the message more. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
That's
Absolutely. Great. Yeah.
Because I think, to bring it really quickly to a couple points, I think fear for people who are aging, and I watch my grandparents go through it. I mean, they're passed away now, but is that lack of independence. What happened to me?
And it's scary for them.
Exactly.
For sure.
And the fear of falling. And we work on that as well in the program, safely and effectively, in a safe environment, how to roll, how to get out of bed and all that, and be able to get back up safely. Because it's a fear.
Which is, it's huge. I mean, we had, I think our third podcast was, it was in November. So it was fall prevention. month. And so we did have, we had Meg from AIM Fitness come on, and she was showing us some exercises that can help to just build your stamina. And simply like while you're making your coffee, the leg actions you can do. And but you know, also boxing would help with that. And so basically any kind of exercise that works on stability and balance is going to be very important as you age.
Exactly. And the language, right? Like, I mean, it's cooler to say as your grandparent that you're a boxer as opposed to saying, and I'm not to say I love dancing, don't get me wrong, I do that in the program as well, but dancing with Parkinson's, it's not as cool to say I'm dancing back my Parkinson's.
It's true.
Just from the cool factor with the grandkids.
Well, and I mean, it's also that, you know, you're it's the terminology, like you were saying, you know, cancer survivors, you're fighting, you know, and this is like a physical, it's a physically debilitating disease, but you can fight it physically back at it. Yeah, like you can punch Parkinson's, you know, like it's really like you're physically fighting that disease, and you're helping yourself. And yeah, it's, oh my God, the slogans you could come up with for that.
So maybe you two should connect.
I can make so many t-shirts with that. You know, like, oh, they're just so many things.
It's awesome. And of course, mindset means a lot, right?
Exactly.
It makes such a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the depression.
Exactly.
Which I did not know was a symptom of Parkinson's. I mean, I would assume, I would imagine that a lot of people that have these diseases that there aren't cures for or that are debilitating, depression would definitely be.
Oh, for sure. So dopamine itself is one of your feel-good chemicals, right? That works tangent with your epinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin, all those chemicals, norepinephrine. I always have to research which one's which, but your dopamine is your main happy feel-good chemical, right? That also controls your movement. So that's why. So it's often depression is the first kind of symptom without realizing it. So, you know, and the high intensity exercise is that dopamine. I always say to people, you're giving yourself that dopamine dump without the side effects that medication give you.
Right. Now for Parkinson's, like you generally have to have some kind of medication because of the pain, or can you go completely medicationless? Is it possible?
So most of my clients are on medication, levodopa, and different methods of it. Some, you know, there's different modalities now. It's hard for me to keep up because I'm running a business as well. But there's also mucuna is the natural. Took me a second to remember it. It's a natural plant and bean has a levodopa component to it that some of my clients have taken because they want to stay off the medication as long as possible, because there's the dyskinesia that happens as time goes on with more and more medication that you're put on. And that's you know, Michael J. Fox is a common example of that because he's in the mainstream media. It's hard to manage, right? Like it's, you know, it's very awkward for a lot of people living with Parkinson's, you know, that kind of shame and embarrassment can go with it as well. And that's something that they so it's more empowering to try to do things naturally at first until medication is, you know, some neurologists advocate and they'll actually know about the Rocksteady boxing program. And I have people that'll call me and be like, my neurologist said that this is what I should look up. And I'm calling you and I'm like, that's amazing. Great. You know, you're taking that first massive step to help offset the progression of your disease until medication is needed. But everybody is an individual. Each person's path is different. So there's, you know, what works for naturally for some people might not work for others.
Might not work.
But
it's an avenue you can look at. It you know, at least you can do research and figure things out and talk to the doctors that are there and try out classes, and you know, you're not stuck.
No. And that's the support part, right? Like, because of the isolation and depression that can occur, it's very important. The attitude, as Tanys was saying, is really, that's the main key. And my mom was a nurse, right? So she always said, like the mental psychosomatic part of it, of patients, those that had a healthier attitude often would heal and come back from things. And I've watched that as nursing in myself, and then also with my clients, those have a more positive attitude or open to becoming more positive, really have helped themselves.
Wow. Beautiful. That's awesome. Amazing.
It's I don't know. It really is inspiring. I mean, your energy level is so amazing, and I mean, we've had so many guests, and everybody's energy level on our podcast are always so high. And I just think, okay, we've invited the right people.
Exactly.
You know, but in this case, you do. Pardon me. You do have to have that positive feeling, and I mean, we see it in just in companionship. In our job, in our role, somebody who the family thinks are, you know, at death's door, but we come in for 2 weeks, you know, and suddenly they're happier, they're chipper, they're, you know, engaging more. And then 2 more weeks come through, and then they're even more happy. And I mean, that camaraderie that comes with your class, even virtual ones, and looking at people going, oh my gosh, you have the same thing I have.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I was at that stage. Okay. Yeah, no, you know, and being able to kind of connect with people that are the same as you without judgment, without people staring.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
that's a common conversation I keep having because I'm working on more advocating too as well for Tanys heard my talk in terms of violence against women and trauma, because it's a space when you're working on healing, whether it's Parkinson's or whether you've dealt with trauma, and it could be both, is very, very key and important when it comes to creating that inclusive environment.
Yeah, inclusivity in all matters is super important, and it's getting a lot more of a headline nowadays, which is amazing. And I think that's what helps people heal and improve, is that ability to sit there and talk with people who've done it, who've had it. And that's the joy of technology as well.
Yes.
Because, you know, if you have a disease that is relatively rare, you know, you'd have to write letters before, but now you could literally talk to somebody in Japan who has the same disease and still feel like you're part of a community and not ostracized.
Community's key.
It is. It really is. Positivity and community.
Mm-hmm.
It can make anything easier to deal with.
For sure.
100%. Absolutely.
So where can we reach you? I see you've got your
I wasn't sure, so I just
at the bottom. Yeah. Perfect. We do have that on the notes down below as well with your story. So that's awesome.
So all my socials are there under litamaebutton.com, but I also have Parkinson's, boxing for Parkinsons on my website there as well. That will take you directly to the actual specific link for the Rock Steady boxing program. So it's all there. So I love to connect, especially we're wrapping up here Parkinson's Awareness Month here in the next week.
Yeah.
Just letting everybody know, because it's the second fastest neurological progressive, like, growing disease worldwide, Parkinson's.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's got to make you wonder why it's growing and we're having more cases.
Aging population too, right? There's a number of demographics. So
okay.
And I also understand on May 17th you have an online women's beginner boxing seminar.
Yes.
So I like related to Parkinson's, but if anyone is listening and interested, you can. Would you just go to your website?
It's there underneath. I've got to update my website. I'm a little bit behind since coming back from Ottawa, but it is my women's boxing seminar is there beside the Parkinson's boxing for Parkinsons. But I'm also very active on social media, so especially on Facebook. So I like to have those little bit more personal kind of connections with people. So
let's be honest, the aging population is more on Facebook than anything else.
Exactly.
Out of social media, Facebook is the way to go, because
So in terms of caregivers, like, it's very important. So I have one caregiver I've been working with her. Her husband has Parkinson's. She took my boxing seminar, loved my style of coaching, and she's been taking my online program in that. So, and she's in her 70s. She's wanted to box her whole entire life. She started with Parkinson's. Yeah,
it's never too late.
Never. So anybody, like, age is just, it's not something to let you hold you back. Like, you can start in your 70s.
Right.
So for women or caregivers who need to look after themselves and want to learn new techniques that can also transfer over to any of their loved ones living with Parkinson's or friends or family.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to see you again. we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. And Heidi, I'd love to connect more as well. And thank you for everybody who's watching. And I hope you got something out of this. But the main thing is that action.
Yep.
Action. Do action.
Stay positive. Find your community and be active.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lita Mae.
Okay. And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for our compassionate chats. See you soon.
Thank you.